as those matters may be the subject of future criminal proceedings or have that capacity. So for that reason, that is my position in respect of this second part of the application.
But a non-publication direction with respect to Mr. Baker's name.
Yes, Your Honour. The other two persons named are now dead.
Scullion.
The submission, as Your Honour knows, was in two parts. It didn't necessarily have to be considered in that, but it has evolved since the last hour, within which time I've been provided with a supplementary statement by the witness. I take it the Commission will have that.
I've been shown a handwritten copy of
Yes, that's all.
a supplementary proposed statement.
A statement which contains an assertion of a kind which can have a profound impact on people's lives, an assertion which is made, published to us for the first time an hour ago. The full implications of that document are still being processed, but I suppose to cut to the chase, I would also be seeking to have this document the subject of a non-publication order, or the contents of this document brought within the terms of the second part of my other application as well.
I assume what you mean by that is with respect to your client's name.
Yes, there may be aspects of the evidence which don't involve reference to him, which may still be of relevance to the Commission in this supplementary statement.
Yes, but your application, if I've understood you correctly, is with respect to the reference to your client's name. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm not trying to force Your Honour's hand, but I just don't know whether I should develop the rest of my submission or whether you'd seek to rule on that aspect of it.
Well, as I understand, Ms Davids put her position with respect to a do not publish order with respect to your client's name in paragraph 25.
Yes.
Is your position the same with respect to the reference to Mr Baker's name in the proposed supplementary document, Ms Davids?
No, Your Honour, it is slightly different because the basis upon which I don't oppose the non-publication is because of the prospect or the capacity for that to form the basis of criminal proceedings. Whereas this is slightly different because of the terms of the statement. Perhaps if I can provide Your Honour with a copy of the statement so that Your Honour has it before
Thank you.
During arguments.
Just seems to me, Ms David, that in paragraph 2 it refers to it refers to that one episode, which is the only subject of the allegation itself.
I understand.
It does refer to paragraph 25. So it seems to me it follows.
It follows that it would be in respect of both.
Yes.
Sorry, back here I couldn't fully hear that exchange.
I was just clarifying with Ms David as to whether or not, with respect to Ms David's non-opposition to the non-publication order of your client's name in paragraph 25 of the original statement, that the same reasoning follows with respect to paragraph 2 of the proposed supplementary statement, and Ms David's now just clarified that it does. Does not oppose.
In which case, and as I say, I don't wish to anticipate the Commission's ruling, but if a non-publication order was to be made in respect of paragraph 2 of the supplementary statement and paragraph 25 of the other statement,
yes,
then I don't apprehend I would need to take more.
Develop any more of your application.
That's so.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kernaghan. I'll just ask whether anyone else wants to be heard with respect to this application.
Please, Your Honour, as it concerns my witness, the author of the supplementary statement, the approach taken by counsel assisting is somewhat different to that which I apprehended and obtained instructions from my client about. I wonder if Your Honour and Commissioners would give me just a moment to explain the effect of what's just discussed to my client so that she has an understanding of the significance of that.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honour.
Do you want us to go off the bench, Mr. Kernaghan? We'll go off the bench for 5 minutes whilst that's being done.
Alex will stand.
Thank you for that opportunity, Your Honour and Commissioners. In relation to the application, and I'll just speak to the application of the non-publication, just so that I have the benefit of abundant caution. I apprehend that the application that's being canvassed and discussed is strictly an application for, in essence, a non-publication of the name Baker.
Yes.
In relation to
paragraph 25.
Paragraph 25 and the supplementary statement.
The paragraph, the same mention in paragraph 2 that attaches itself to paragraph 25.
Yes, but that the evidence of both those paragraphs would otherwise be admitted and spoken of and capable of being published.
Yes.
In relation to the position, I don't propose to respond to the first application in Learned Senior Counsel's written submissions just in relation to the non-publication.
Yes.
It's my client's position that she is anxious that aspects of her evidence not be approached from a point of view of an exercise in editing, and the ability to speak to the person who she believes was the person who victimised her is central to the role and purpose of her giving evidence in these proceedings.
Yes.
She considers her ability to do that will be limited to a substantive degree by a decision to essentially not publish that name and only in respect to certain portions of her account. Now, the point of Learned Senior Counsel assisting the Commission is well made in relation to the possibility of criminal proceedings. My client has a view of some cynicism towards that possibility, which, given the history of the matter, the Commission may take under advisement, but it's not without some consideration as to whether or not what is said here in this account may or may not serve to prejudice or undermine such a criminal proceedings. That's a matter for the Commission, and I won't speak further to that. But my client wants to be able to name the person who victimised her. It's important to her. It's particularly important to her because of the contents of the supplementary statement as well. And it is true, and I accept Senior Counsel's observation that Mr Baker is in a position of some limited resource. Senior Counsel also has the ability to seek to canvass issues that would defend himself through this process, and he may avail himself of that as an adequate remedy to the issues of his character and reputation. And if it goes beyond that, then there'd be no chance, I should imagine and submit, that the Commission would permit it to go beyond that. So it's my submission that the non-publication order in such a confined scope has little utilitarian purpose, given what the Commission can afford to Mr Baker to address the issues, and will have a counterproductive purpose in the sense that it will discourage complainants who wish to provide a full account and a comprehensive account and have their day in court, which the Commission has already had so much evidence of, has been denied or is perceived to have been denied for many of them. So those are my submissions in relation to that. Thank you, Your Honour.
Thanks, Mr Kernaghan. Ms David, I'll start with you.
Your Honour, in my submission, it is appropriate to order a non-publication order in respect of paragraph 25 and the associated paragraph in the addendum statement. In my submission, that doesn't in any way limit the witness, AYL, from giving her account fully. It simply relates to the publication of that very limited aspect of her account. And in my submission, that should in no way discourage people from coming forward and giving their account fully to the Royal Commission. So for those reasons, in my submission, nothing that's been said cuts across or undermines the valid reason for the non-publication order in these circumstances, which in my submission are very limited.
Yes, and the process that, as I understand what you're saying, that the way in which you intend to proceed in this forum is to go through the material contained in AYL's statement.
Yes, she'll read her statement out fully.
And indeed now the supplementary statement that's been prepared by Mr Kernaghan, or with, I understand it was you, Mr Kernaghan, that has assisted your client to prepare that supplementary statement.
It was my instructing clerk.
I see.
Yes.
So AYL will quite properly be allowed to, or will be able to, give a full account of her version and the incidents that occurred to her at Neerkol. All that's being asked to occur is that the name of Mr Baker is not published in respect of two very discrete aspects.
Yes, and whilst Mr Kernaghan makes reference to his client's instructions about a level of cynicism with respect to the criminal justice process, it is certainly to you to make submissions to the Commission with respect to the referral of those allegations for the purposes of
Yes.
prosecution in the appropriate forum, which of course is not here.
That's correct. Yes, Your Honour. So for those reasons in my submission, there is a proper basis to not publish Mr Baker's name in that discrete way, in that limited way, and nothing. There's no reason, as put by Mr Kernaghan, for the Commission to do otherwise.
And just to, again, to make it absolutely clear that the basis upon which you don't oppose it is to ensure that any
Future criminal
justice process is not compromised.
Yes, should those take place.
Yes. Did you want to say anything more, Mr Kelly?
Well, a couple of things. Firstly, as regards to the supplementary statement, not quite as simple as just removing the name from the second paragraph, because when the last sentence or the last part of the last sentence is read in conjunction with the balance of the evidence, that has an identifying effect.
Sorry, I'm not following you.
It's difficult to speak in the abstract. Perhaps I could deal with my first point first, though, is that the mechanics of this, as I understand it, we're live streaming. I've no difficulty with the witness giving her evidence
Yes.
within this room
Yes.
as freely as she wishes to.
Yes.
But can I just inquire about the mechanics of ensuring that's not published to the world over the internet?
Yes. There is a delay. I'm happy to explain that to you. There's a delay in the, I'm not sure what it is, whether it's something like 20-second delay, and so what happens is the name gets, any name that's the subject of a do not publish order gets redacted.
And that's why I'm concerned about the process if a statement's being read, whether it's a question of someone just pressing a button at the precise second that a name is read.
Because there's a 20-second delay. So that's why it won't get published.
All right.
I'm right about that, aren't I? That's what happens. Yeah.
And just returning to, if Your Honour has the supplementary statement in front of you,
Yes.
and the second paragraph, the second last line, halfway through it, begins with the words "I had."
Yes.
In my submission, that entire sentence should be redacted.
I'm not sure I follow why.
Well, because when read in conjunction with the balance of the blank.
But if reference to your client's name is removed,
From that, it will be easily deduced from the contents of her other statement, because she speaks about my client in that context. So it will be, it would be pointless just to remove his name from that sentence.
do you want to say anything about that, Ms. David?
In my submission, that's not necessarily so, because in the incident, there's two other people. I believe I had sex with I believe this because other than the incident, so the sex with the two other people, I had never had sex with anyone other than at Neerkol. So in my submission, if incident 25 is removed, then it's not necessarily left with Mr. Baker as the only other person.
If the incident of 25 is removed, that's so, but as I understood it, that was not going to happen. It was only going to be the name.
Yes,
All of paragraph 25.
Yes, exactly. So
Now, Ms Awale, do you wish to take the oath or the affirmation for the purpose of giving your evidence? Take the oath. Is it too uncomfortable for you to stand? Thank you. Would you mind repeating after me, please? I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give in this Royal Commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. Take a seat again, please. Thanks, Ms David.
AYL, have you provided a statement to the Royal Commission dated the 4th of March 2015?
I have.
And do you have a copy of that statement before you?
I have.
And in reviewing your statement with your solicitor, have you identified some changes that you would like to make to the statement?
I have.
Can I now just take you through those proposed changes? Can I take you to paragraph 7 on page 2?
Yes.
Should the final sentence of that paragraph read, as a result of this, I was placed in Neerkol with my 4 brothers rather than 5 brothers?
Yes.
And then if I take you down to paragraph 13, you say you talk about at paragraph 13 about Mr. Baker.
Yes.
And you say you talk in that paragraph about him having worked as a baker in 1969.
No, he was in the bakehouse. I didn't say he worked there. It was the 61 that was. Was that the one?
Right. If we look at paragraph 13.
He worked in the bakehouse as a baker in 64, but he was in the bakehouse in 1961. That's what I was trying to clarify.
Okay, so is it in fact paragraph 14 that you'd like to clarify?
Yes. Yes.
And what would you like paragraph 14 to say?
The first was we were working 61 and the occasional try to dismiss because I went past. Yeah, where Baker worked.
Changes to your version or your...
Only small changes. It's just
Yes.
they didn't get it. They had typos, I think.
Yes. I understand that you wish to read the statement to the Royal Commission. Is that correct?
If I can't, Aaron will read some of it, or you can.
All right. Well, perhaps if you read as much as you can of your statement dated the 4th of March 2015, and if you have any difficulties, just ask, and myself or your solicitor and counsel will help you out, okay?
Right to go.
This statement made by me accurately sets out the evidence that I am prepared to give to the Royal Commission into institutional response to child sexual abuse. The statement is true and correct to the best of my knowledge and belief. In preparing this statement, I have been shown certain documents relating to my abuse at St Joseph's Orphanage, Neerkol, where I refer to the document in the statement. I have used the documents to reference number, which appears in the top right-hand corner of the document to which I refer. I have not independently reviewed the St Joseph's Orphanage Neerkol documents from which these documents have been drawn. Where direct speech is referred to in the statement, it is provided in words to the effect of those which were used to the best of my recollection. This statement has been prepared on the basis that the Commission will issue a notice to proceed under the Royal Commission Act 1902 for the production of a signed copy. In or about February 1961, when I was 10 years of age, my dad passed away and my mum was placed in a psychiatric facility. As a result of this, I was placed in Neerkol with my 4 brothers and 1 sister. I remember that when we arrived at Neerkol, I was separated from my brother and my sister. My youngest brother was 6 weeks old. He was sent to the nursery to live. I first lived at Neerkol for about 12 months before I went back to live with my mum, who by then had been discharged from hospital, and my nana. I lived with my mum until 1963, at which time my mum went back to hospital. My brothers, sister and I went back to Neerkol to live. I still am sad when I think about the fact that I was not allowed to live with my grandmother. I proceeded to live at Neerkol on and off until I was 18 years old. The nuns would send us back to Mum when they thought that she was better, but soon enough we would be returned to Neerkol. I recall that the priest in charge of Neerkol when I first arrived was Father Anderson. Father Durham was the priest in charge after Father Anderson left. The nun in charge was Mother Clare, next nun in charge Mother Regis, then Mother Ahmad. Sexual abuse by Kevin Baker. Whilst at Neerkol, I was sexually abused by Kevin Baker. Baker was at the bakehouse at Neerkol. The bakehouse was between the kitchen and the laundry. The first time that I was abused by Baker was in 61. On this occasion, I was trying to sneak to the nursery to see my baby brother. On the way to see my brother, I went past the bakehouse where Baker was. I would hear a noise in the bakehouse, so I pulled up boxes so I could peek in the windows over the flour bags which were placed inside on the floor. When I looked in the window, I saw Baker sexually abusing another boy who was a resident at Neerkol. The boy wasn't wearing pants. I can't say his name. Can I say the boy's name?
No, but is that a person who's going to be
No,
a
that
witness?
name's been redacted.
I just wanted to ask because it wasn't in here.
I understand.
I was too scared to say anything because I knew that Baker had seen me peeking in the window. He turned to look at the window. When he turned to look at the window, he stopped abusing the boy, and I could see blood running down the boy's leg. As soon as he saw me, I ran off. I remember that when I went to tell one of the nuns that I had seen Baker doing something to one of the boys in the bakehouse and that he was bleeding. The nun slapped me and got angry at me for making up lies. To some point later the next day, when I was coming back from one of the dormitories, Baker grabbed me and pinned me down behind a tree at the back of the nursery. He proceeded to rape me with a broom handle and his fingers. When Baker was done, he said to me, "If you say anything, it won't be a few inches, but a few feet the next time." I knew that he was referring to the broom handle and what he had done to me with it. At the time, I could not comprehend what was happening. I was too scared to say anything, so I simply pulled up my underwear and ran off. I went to find Mother Superior to tell her that I needed a band-aid because I was bleeding. She said that I was just getting my periods, and I told her what Baker had done to me. She told me to go and have a shower. The next day I bumped into Baker again. He told me not to tell anyone or he would get my brother. After the first occasion, Baker did not sexually abuse me again that year. He only used the broom handle once, which is why I can remember it. On one occasion, I told Father Anderson during confession what Baker had done to me. He told Mother Regis or Claire what I had said, and I was made to scrub the floors with a toothbrush. I scrubbed every floor at the place with a toothbrush. On a different occasion, I tried to tell Mother Superior what had happened. She told me that I was just like my mother, which I understood to mean that I had psychiatric problems. I was then locked in a cupboard in a room above the office for causing trouble. When I returned to Neerkol in 1963, Baker started to routinely sexually abuse me. He would force me to have do I have to say that word? Yes. Sex with him. During these assaults, I was unable to scream. I soon stopped feeling any physical or emotional pain. I felt numb. On one occasion, I was near the statue. Oh my God. When I was finished, he came in and took me to have a shower in the convent. The next day I was very sore. I was told to go and pack my bags as I was leaving Neerkol. I was then driven into the State Children's Department where I waited for the rest of the day before I was flown to Brisbane to a psychiatric hospital. I spent a period of time there before I was transferred to the Legion of Mary hostel. After a couple of months, I was sent to Tufnell Home. I ended up running away from Tufnell Home, so they sent me to the Good Shepherd Home. I again ran away because I wanted to get back to Neerkol to my brothers and sister. I was sent to Arilda, which was a training centre for unruly girls. Just before I turned 18 years of age, I was sent to a farm to work. After a few months, I again ran away. I finally got back to Rockhampton, even though they had tried to keep me away from the Northern District. Reporting the abuse at Neerkol. In about 1963, when I was back living with my mum, I told her what had happened to me. She took me to the police station where I told Sergeant Tiggy Nolan about my abuse by Baker. He told me that I was out now, I should go and put it behind me. I ran home and told my nana. She told me horrific stories about her childhood, and I gained strength from that when I was sent back to Neerkol. I tried to tell the nuns on a number of occasions what was happening to me. They never believed what I said. What was worse was that I was often punished for disclosing my abuse. I was called a troublemaker and a liar. After I left Neerkol, I wanted to get back to my brother and sister. I ran away from every place they put me in trying to get back to Neerkol. I had promised my mother that I would take care of my brother and my sisters. On one occasion, I was picked up by the police. I tried to tell the police officer who had picked me up what was happening at Neerkol, and I was trying to get back to my family. He didn't believe me and took me back to Arilda anyway. On another occasion, I tried to tell the inspector, Mr. O'Connor from the Department of Children's Services, what was happening to me. He did nothing. Nothing happened. I think that Mr. O'Connor told the nuns what I had said because I remember being flogged a lot more after this. After I left Neerkol, I did not talk about the abuse until some years later. Civil litigation. In or about 1996, I learnt about the work that the Neerkol Action Support Group were doing. I soon learnt that the number of the former residents were going to sue what had happened to them at Neerkol. Through the Neerkol Action Support Group, I was part of a class action against the Sisters of Mercy and the Diocese of Rockhampton. I received a small amount in settlement of claim against the Sisters of Mercy and the Diocese of Rockhampton. The sisters also paid for some counselling for me. On the 16th of June 1999, I wrote a letter, CTJH, to the editor of the local paper about the settlement. I indicated that I wanted to thank Sister Diane Rowan for all her time and efforts to try and right the wrongs by the past nuns of Neerkol. I felt that this was the first nun who had ever listened and actually believed what we were saying. It was a relief, and I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. However, I think that the amount that I received was a joke. I can never be compensated for the abuse that I suffered at Neerkol. I just wish that I could wind back the clock and be a child. I do appreciate the help the sisters have provided to me. They have also given me some discretionary amounts to help out when things had been a bit tight, in particular Anne Chikansky. The response coordinator for the Sisters of Mercy has never turned her back on any ex-residents if they had asked for help. I feel that she has gone above and beyond her call of duty and has shown a real care for the former residents of Neerkol. It makes me feel like the nuns of today are trying to right what happened in the past, like they have a heart. While they can't fix everything, they are trying as much as they can to make our lives easier. Criminal trial against Baker. I didn't want to tell the police about my abuse, but I did. Even when I did, I was only able to tell them some of what had happened. Because of my experience at Neerkol, I have never been able to trust people in positions of authority. As a result of the complaint received by the Queensland Police, Baker was charged with a number of offences arising out of the conduct at Neerkol. I was involved in a criminal case against Baker in or about 1999. I gave evidence at the committal hearing. Is this it? I have been shown a letter, CTJH, from the Director of Public Prosecutions to my lawyer dated 12th of July 2002. The letter indicates that the Director had decided to discontinue the matter in which I was involved because of a number of technical legal issues. I do not remember seeing this letter, but remember learning that charges against Baker were not going to proceed. I was absolutely furious when I learned this. All I ever wanted was justice. I felt that Baker got away with what he had done to me and others because of legal issues. The whole criminal process left a sour taste in my mouth. It still makes me extremely angry to know I was never able to tell my story in a criminal court and get justice done, and see justice done. Impact of abuse. I have sad and painful memories of my time at Neerkol. My abuse has impacted on every aspect of my life. I have had a number of failed relations because I do not like to touch others, people, or be touched. I cannot say I love you easily. I can't really express my emotions. I feel like I was never a child. I never had the opportunity to play. I really had to learn this from my children, who I should have been teaching when I should have been teaching them. My abuse has impacted my children. I have hypervigilance, and I am sorry, I'm just getting a bit tongue-tied here. Vigilant, and I do not easily trust people. I do not trust them at all. I do not have many friends. I have my dogs, and they make me happy. I still live in fear that something could happen to me again. All I want is a normal life, one without abuse. I just want to know what it is like to be normal. What's that? I have found it incredibly difficult. I find it very difficult to have to tell my story to so many people over the years. At times, I find telling my story is like being tortured. I am hopeful that this is the very last time that I ever have to tell anyone what happened to me at Neerkol. All I want to do now is to try and put this all behind me. I hope that by telling my story, it is clear that children need to be believed. Children do not lie. They are a precious gift, and we need to do the best we can for them. I hope that in the future we do not let children down like we were at Neerkol. Thank you.
AYL, today did you also, with the assistance of your solicitor, provide a further statement to the Royal Commission?
Yes.
And I understand that you would also like to read that statement?
Yes.
And that's a two-page statement dated the 15th of April 2015.
this with the Royal Commission when I made my statements dated 4th of March 2015. I did ask for this information to be included in previous statement, but it was not.
At this stage, can I tender both those statements?
Yes.
The first dated the 4th of March 2015 and the second dated the 15th of April 2015.
So both statements will be marked Exhibit 26.8.
Your Honour, I can provide the original to Councillor Sisting
Thank
for
you.
the purpose of that tender.
We'll have them redacted appropriately and then hand them up. I have no questions of this witness.
All right. I'll come back to you, Mr. Kernaghan. Ms. Marriage. Anyone at the next bar table? No.
Very briefly, please.
Just introduce yourself, please, Mr. Kent.
Ms. AYL, my name's Kent. I appear on behalf of the Queensland Government. I'll just ask you about one small passage of the statement. Could you have a look for me, please, at paragraph 34?
Yeah.
Can you see that there? That's when you gave some details to Mr. O'Connor, and you drew a conclusion that he may have passed something on to the nuns. Do you recall now, are you able to help us with any degree of detail about exactly what you did tell him? How much detail you went into with him?
I told him what was happening when you already said to me, you sure it wasn't your father? That was his exact words.
Sure, I'm just trying to find out what you mean by what was happening.
What was happening with Baker at Neerkol?
Baker.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, thank you.
Mr. Callaghan.
As AYL, you're aware my name's Callaghan and I'm acting for Mr Baker.
I certainly do.
You have your statement dated for... I take you, for example, to paragraph 14, where you allege that Mr Baker did some things to you in 1961.
I know it, yes.
And, for example, in paragraph 24, where you talk about events of 1963.
Yes.
You were here yesterday, were you not?
Yes.
You heard the opening address by Councillor Sisting.
I did.
You heard her say that in 1959 Mr Baker left the orphanage and returned in 1964.
I did.
Have you discussed that with her at all?
No, but I know he was there because he was there on occasion. He was never there all the time. I didn't say he lived there in 1961. I said he was there sometimes in 1961. You didn't see him very often, some days through the week, occasionally on weekends, but very rarely in 1961.
And you're aware, Ms AYL, of course, that Mr Baker denies any wrongdoing towards you, but you maintain that it occurred. Is that correct?
He denies it. Of course he would.
Thank you. No further questions.
Ms AYL, just a couple of matters, if you can assist us, please. You've got a copy of your statement there, haven't you? The first one. Can you have a look at paragraph 19, just in your first statement, where you tell the Royal Commission that you went to find Mother Superior to tell her that you needed a Band-Aid because you were bleeding.
Yes.
Can you help us with the name of Mother Superior?
It was either Mother Regis or Mother Claire.
Okay.
I don't know which one it was.
All right.
One was first and one was second.
Okay.
I always got them mixed up.
Okay. And are you able to, I know it's a long time ago, but are you able to say anything more to us about what you said to Mother Superior about your bleeding?
I just told her I was bleeding because I was bleeding, and I just told her I was bleeding and I needed a Band-Aid. That's actually all I told her.
Okay. So that was the full extent.
Yes.
And she Yeah, she responded in the way in which you've
Yes,
set out there.
exactly.
Right. Thank you. Now, can you turn to paragraph 22 now in your statement? And you've told us at paragraph 22 that on one occasion you told Father Anderson during confession about what Kevin Baker had done to you. And then you go on to say that Father Anderson told either Mother Regis or Mother Claire because of what then happened to you.
Yes.
First, can I just ask you, can you recall what Father Anderson said to you?
We just gave him a confession, never said anything really, just told him to say so many Hail Marys and Our Father, and that was it.
Okay. So when you say Father Anderson told Mother Regis or Mother Claire...
I felt he must have told her because the beltings got more.
Okay.
Got more regular.
But do you recall that either Mother Regis or Mother Claire said anything to you about what Father Anderson told them? Okay.
No, they never said he said anything. I just assumed he must have because the beltings got more often.
I understand. Now, your paragraph 30, you tell us that in about 1963, that's when, I think that's when you first go to the police station. That's when you...
Sergeant Tiggy Nolan.
Sergeant
yes.
Tiggy Nolan.
It was a small...
You've told us after I left Neerkol, I didn't talk about my abuse until some years later.
Mm-hmm.
So just interested to understand from you, if you're doing the best you can, when's the first time that you talked to anybody?
When the Neerkol Action Support Group, around about that time when it started up, when Mary Adams Ether started that Neerkol Action Support Group up.
Okay. And is that why you started talking, because that support action group had started up?
Well, basically I was absolutely shocked that it all was starting to come up, because when we left Neerkol we promised we'd never tell anyone about it. So it was just basically a shock, you know. So then that's how it all started coming out.
So, but that's the reason why you also felt that was the time to speak. Is that...
Well,
we
not
understood
really.
that?
It was just, we just talked about it. It was just basically general talking about it, you know.
Understand.
If you, can you understand what I'm trying to say? Yeah.
Thank you. Ms AYL, if I could just get you to have a look at paragraph 27 of your statement, where you talk about being told to go and pack your bags, that you were leaving Neerkol after the...
Yes.
After a terrible incident. Do you remember being told why you were being sent to a psychiatric hospital? Did they
I wasn't. I thought I was going somewhere to have my headaches looked at, because I used to get a lot of headaches. But I didn't know until I got to Brisbane that I was going to D-floor maximum security for the mentally insane. That's where they put me, because they attacked the matron with a bread knife, they said. but I didn't. But that's exactly what happened.
And as part of that admission to the hospital, did anyone ask you what had happened to you or where you had been or any circumstances surrounding your
At the
experiences?
hospital?
Yes, at the hospital.
They did ask, but I wasn't very cooperative because when I was there, I saw these ladies getting shock treatment and a girl cutting her arm with a broken bottle. So they were very good to me there because they gave me a room downstairs out of the locker room, and they had only put me back upstairs when the State Department came. And then when they left, they gave me my room back. I had run of the whole hospital grounds and everything. So they were very good to me there.
But you didn't feel able to talk about what had
Oh
happened
no,
to you
because I was
during
scared I
that?
was going to get that shock treatment they were giving everybody, you know, so I had no way. And you'll see, I never cooperated with them whatsoever,
Okay,
only because of that.
thank you.
Just one matter arising from that, if I can, please, Ms. Awale. Just with respect to paragraph 27, do you remember the year or even the month that happened? Can
To
you?
go into the psychiatric hospital, that was in May 1967. 17, I think. Was it 67 or was it been 17 years old? In May 1967.
Thank you.
Now, anything arising... Oh, I'm sorry, Mr Kernaghan. I do apologise.
You've put some of my questions much quicker than I could have, so I'm grateful. As you know, I'm your lawyer.
Yes.
My name's Kernaghan. I have some questions to ask you. Can I just bring your attention to paragraph 13 of your first statement? And that's where you've been asked a question about this, about when you recall Mr Baker working or being present at the facility. Just to be clear, is it your recollection that you recalled him working there from 1964 onwards,
Yes.
but that he was present
He was
before
present.
that time?
Yeah.
Now, can I take you to paragraph 15 of your first statement? Just have a look at that for me. I understand that there's something that you want to tell the commissioners about the use of the word abuse in that paragraph.
About what?
About the use of the word abusing. You see that in the second line.
When I saw them abusing the boys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it the case that you didn't know that that's what it was at the time?
No.
You just later came to that knowledge?
Yes, correct.
But as soon as you were seen by Mr Baker, you ran off.
Yes.
Is there a particular reason why you ran away?
He saw me.
What did you think would happen?
I didn't know. I really didn't know what would happen.
In any event, you came to tell one of the nuns what had happened,
Yeah, Mother Regis or Mother Claire.
and you were punished for that
Correct.
and accused of making up lies.
Yes.
And is that how you recall the way in which you were treated generally?
At Neerkol?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we were always getting belted for one thing because I couldn't keep my mouth closed.
Can you turn over the page to paragraph 20? See there, you're talking about the next day, and you bumped into Mr Baker again,
Yes.
and he said to you not to tell anyone, or he would get your brother.
Yes.
Now, your brother at the time was present, was living at Neerkol.
He was at Neerkol, yes.
What did you understand him to mean? What did you take him to mean,
I thought he meant my baby brother in the nursery.
right? And what did you think he would be doing?
Same things he was doing to the boy in the bakehouse.
When Mr Baker approached you the next day, oh, I'm sorry, I withdraw that. When you saw Mr Baker the next day, do you recall what he was doing?
To the boy?
No, the next day when you have that conversation with him at paragraph 20,
Yeah.
do you remember what he was doing?
No? What he was doing when?
Where he was?
Yeah, it was near the bakehouse, near the nursery area. Courthouse.
Is it your memory that Mr Baker used to move around quite freely?
Yes, all over the place.
Was it usually?
But he never went into the dormitories, only just all around the grounds.
Was it usually the case that he was accompanied by one of the sisters?
Oh, yeah, it was always, sometimes he was with the nuns, sometimes with the other workmen, or sometimes with a lot of boys.
The occasion that you saw him abusing the boy in the bakehouse, he was on his own on that occasion?
Yes, he was on his own.
At night time, was he able to move around without any controls that you
Oh,
could
yes,
see?
he could walk around anywhere. He had freedom of the whole place.
What did you at the time understand was his job there?
Well, not until 19... I knew he was a baker in 1964, but I thought he was, he was a baker. We hadn't even known him as a baker.
And before then?
I didn't know what he was before then. I just saw him. I didn't have a clue what he was doing.
No one had
or
explained
anything.
that.
No, I didn't even know if he was even one of the residents there.
Can you look a little bit down that page further at paragraph 23, and you see that you were asked some questions by the commissioners about this. You see that there was a reference there to being told that you were just like your mother.
Yeah.
And you understood that to be a reference to you having some psychiatric problems.
Yeah, because my mother had mental psychiatric problems.
And you were locked in a cupboard or a room.
There was a room above Mother Ahmad's, above the convent.
Yes. Earlier in your evidence, you spoke about how you first came to be at Neerkol.
Mm-hmm.
And it was to do with your mother's difficulties with her mental health and her psychiatric problems.
Yes.
When you were at Neerkol, so far as you can remember, do you recall having had any discussions with the sisters or anyone about those issues?
No.
Do you recall anyone ever sitting you down and talking to you about how your mum is going?
No.
Did anyone ever want to have a dialogue with you about how your family was?
No.
While you were there, what did you know about your brothers and sister?
We didn't know much about them, but all I know is when we went there, they scrubbed my sister till she was red raw. I saw that myself, because her skin was darker than the rest of ours.
Did you have much opportunity to be with your brothers
Not
and
in the
sisters?
beginning, but when my sister came up to the big girls' dormitory, we had a bit more interaction, but prior to that, none.
In the time that you were there, did anyone assist you to understand what was happening with your mother?
No.
While you were there, did anyone assist you understanding any problems that you were having?
No.
And by that I mean personal mental health issues.
I didn't have mental health issues.
Yeah. When you were worried about something, who would you go to?
We just each other.
Not to the sisters?
No.
Not to the priests?
No. Only when something bad happened, you'd tell them in confession. That's about all.
How often would you go to confession?
We went every Saturday.
And you were asked some questions about your feelings of being able to talk to people about things that have happened to you over your lifetime. In those confessional or that confession that you went to, did you feel the ability to speak about anything that had happened to you?
Not all the time, only when you learned that if you told the priest you're only going to get belted, so you learned to just say nothing.
But before that, you felt that you could
Yes.
disclose anything.
Yeah, to the priest. On occasion. I don't know how to answer that.
Just look at paragraph 24. And in that paragraph, you, in the second sentence, refer to being unable to scream. And I just want to ask you to explain to the Commission what you've told me about that, your inability to scream. Can you tell the Commission about how you weren't able to scream?
When they penetrated you, you tried to scream, but when you opened your mouth, nothing would come out. It was like you're trying to, when somebody's doing something awful to you, and you try to scream, nothing would come out of my mouth. That's how it was. So even when I tried to scream, I couldn't. Does that answer that?
Well, can I ask you to just quickly now look at paragraph 25? I understand that you wanted to But it was Mother Ahmed that took you into the church
Yes,
and encouraged you to ask forgiveness for your sins.
yes.
And you said to the Commission before that you didn't understand what your sins were, but you did as you were told. Why did you do that? Do you remember?
Will you go through what I just went through that night? You wouldn't question anything after that, you just did as you were told. So I didn't know what might happen.
Now, just on this point and what happened next, bear that in mind and also just refresh your memory about paragraph 34, which is over the next page. Now, I understand that you wanted to clarify something in your evidence to the Commission about speaking with Mr O'Connor about the incident that occurred to you, which led to you being sent away. Is it the case that when you complained to Mr O'Connor the next day, apart from what you've already told the Commission, he indicated to you something about what sort of a case you had?
Case?
Did he tell you something about the sort of evidence that you had presented him with?
What do you mean?
Did he express an opinion to you about whether or not he had enough to go on?
To go on what?
I don't think there'll be any objection to you being clear and leading if you've got some instructions about this.
Did Mr O'Connor say to you that he didn't think that there was enough of a case to proceed with your complaint?
Yes, yeah.
And during the course of that discussion with Mr O'Connor, is it your memory that that he sought information from Mother Ahmed?
Oh, yes. They were going to send me to when I went into Mr O'Connor's office that day, they were trying to get doctors to sign documents, put me in institutions, but no doctors would sign anything saying I wouldn't benefit by being put into another institution. But then somehow they were told that I'd attacked the matron with a bread knife. So Dr. Phillips or someone signed some documents to have me sent to a mental institution. Right. That's how it happened.
When you went to see Mr O'Connor, who was with you?
Just me.
Right. And Thank you, I'll withdraw that. Just taking you to paragraph 29, and just to indicate for time, I'm almost complete, Your Honour. You'll see there that there's a reference to you returning to Rockhampton. Where did you live when you returned to Rockhampton?
When I ran away from the farm,
Yes.
I lived under the Fitzroy River Bridge for a while and slept in the boathouse.
And
Then I went out saying,
at 46. At 318, I'm told. Thank you. Perhaps if it can just go to the top of that page so that can be visible. Now, the document that's on the screen is a document that you were shown in preparation for the making of your statement to the Royal Commission. Is that right?
That was the Department of Public Prosecutions?
Yes.
Yes.
And this is a document that was addressed to Mr. Everingham,
Yes.
a solicitor at law.
Yes.
And was he your solicitor?
He was a solicitor in a different matter altogether, yes.
In any event, you see there that it's dated the 12th of July 2002.
Yes.
You didn't receive it at or around that time. Is that
No.
what you tell the Commission? I just wonder if that letter can be scrolled down. And thank you. Now, you see that the letter sets out reasons why the Queensland Director of Public Prosecutions had made a decision to proceed no further with the prosecution. You understand that's the purpose of this letter,
Yes,
don't
I
you?
do.
How did you find out that your case was not going to trial?
Because Leanne Clare kept me dangling on a string for about 12 months because we had to ring up every week to see how the case was going each week as to what was happening. And then one day she told me that my case would never go to court, and that was it. That's how I found out.
Right. And who was that person to you?
Leanne Clare, Department of Public Prosecution.
And when you were going through that process with the DPP, did you have any counsellor assist you?
Yeah, there was Mel Shelley, but when she told me that, she seemed to vanish. Couldn't get her on the phone anymore. She wasn't there. They said she wasn't there anymore, and that was it.
Did you have a meeting with the DPP lawyers to discuss these issues with your case?
No.
Were you told over the phone that
Over
this
the phone,
case
yeah.
was going to end?
Yes.
And you had not had a meeting with anyone from the DPP
No.
to sort out those issues?
No, never.
Or to discuss the possibility that your case might not be able to proceed?
No.
Up until seeing this letter in recent times, what did you understand was the reason why your case had not proceeded?
Well, I didn't understand why it didn't go ahead, because they said that my case was, the judge said there was enough evidence to set it down for trial. And then they said that my case would probably put him behind bars, and that was the end of it. That's all I knew. I figured that I had a good case and it was going to happen and it was going to go to, trial, but it never did. So I had no understanding of real reasons other than that.
Thank you. Could the page be scrolled down to the next page? Do you just see that paragraph there that commences, as you are probably aware, and you appreciate that this letter was addressed to your solicitor, the leading authority, and there's a reference to a case of Baker and a further reference to a case of S and the Queen. You see that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, you've had a chance previously to read this. Do you understand any of that?
No.
Do you understand what is meant by particularisation?
No.
Has anyone in preparation for that trial that you participated in ever asked you if you could assume just finally, I'm going to refer now again to the paragraph 25 incident. That's the incident with the three people that you've spoken of before, AYL. You were present yesterday when You heard people making reference to the fact that these proceedings are the first time that that has been brought up. You heard that?
Sorry?
I'm just taking you to
just a bit
paragraph...
tired, sorry.
That's all right. I'm just taking you to paragraph 25
Yeah.
and the incident with the 3 people that we've described
Yes,
before.
I know, yes.
You heard yesterday people here at the Royal Commission mentioning the fact that these proceedings are the first time that you've brought that incident up. Did you hear people say that?
Yes.
It's the case that that's not so, isn't it?
No.
And that in fact you have previously raised this incident.
Yes.
Can you tell the commissioners who you told about this incident?
I told Lyneen Ford at the Ford, and I told Marilla at Lotus. We talked extensively about it, and Carol Mahan was another one.
When you told Ms Ford, Commissioner Ford, that was part of her inquiry?
Yes. That's when they sat in the big room with all the other people around the round table, we called it.
That was not part of the hearing, that was part of a private hearing,
Yes.
is that right?
Yes, we went in one by one.
And you disclosed that information
Yes.
at that time? Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honour. Thank you, Commissioner.
Just one moment. I'm just going to check with everyone as to whether there's anything more. Thank you, Ms Ayal. Thank you for your attendance, and you're now excused, and thank you to your support person for your assistance.
Thanks for helping us. Okay.
I do note the time. I know that the next witness is to be called. I also appear for the next witness. I appreciate the time, but I wonder if I might impose on the Commission to give me some time just to speak to the last witness and the next witness before proceeding. I apologise for the time, but
Yes.
I'm sensitive to that.
Now, I can just see Mr O'Callaghan on his feet, and I might deal with him first. I assume he wants to be excused, do you?
I do, and I also wish my ignorance to be pardoned as regards the non-publication order. I would be of the understanding that there would be a media liaison officer that could deal with any inquiries from the press, and the terms of Your Honour's ruling were clear enough to me.
Yes.
And
they will be committed to writing by Ms David's assistant.
Thank you.
And in due course, I'm sure, before the end of the day's out, a formal direction signed by me will be made and made available for the purposes of any inquiries.
Thank you for that explanation, and as I understand it, there are no further witnesses directly referring to Mr Baker, so...
No, I'm not sure about that. Ms David?
I thought Thomas Murnane, who's the next witness, also referred to Kevin Baker. I'm just trying to isolate it at the moment. It's not, I can't locate that in this statement, but there is some suggestion that there might be a reference to Mr Baker.
I don't need to hold things up. I can wait. I can sort that out.
Perhaps if we have a short break, I might clarify that.
Let's do that. We'll take 5 minutes.
Silence will stand.
We're ready to proceed with the next witness. Mr Murnane does not, in fact, refer to Mr Baker. It's as is in his statement. So, as I understand it.
And on that basis, and as I understand it, with no further interest, I'd seek for myself and my instructing solicitor to be excused.
Yes, I will excuse you, Mr Callaghan. Thank you.
And I call Mr Thomas Murnane.
Mr Murnane, for the purposes of giving evidence to the Royal Commission, do you wish to take the oath or the affirmation?
Take the oath, thank you.
Thank you. Can you repeat after me, please? I swear by Almighty God
I swear by Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give
the evidence I shall give
in this Royal Commission
in this Royal Commission
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the
nothing
truth.
but the truth.
Thank you, Mr Murnane. If you replace the Bible and take a seat right where you are.
Mr Murnane, did you provide a statement to the Royal Commission dated the 19th of March 2015?
I did.
And do you have a copy of that statement before you?
I do.
And have you had an opportunity to go through it and review it before coming into the courtroom?
No, I've only just really received it. I did prior by signing it.
And is it an accurate account of to the best of your recollection?
That's my knowledge, yes.
I tender that statement, Your Honour.
26.9.
And I understand, Mr Murnane, that you would like to read that statement to the hearing.
I will, yes.
Perhaps if I can suggest you start from the heading background.
Thomas Reginald Name.
Yes.
Occupation retired, dated 19th March 2015, 215. This statement made by me accurately sets out the evidence that I'm prepared to give to the Royal Commission into the institutional response to child sex abuse. The statement is true and correct to the best of my knowledge and belief. In preparing this statement, I have been shown certain documents relative to my abuse. St. Joseph's Orphanage, Neerkol, where I refer to the documents in the station. I have this document reference which appears...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wonder if my witness might be directed to paragraph 5 and he might perhaps just read from paragraph 5 of his statement. I think that's what my friend was indicating.
It was.
Yes.
Do you see the heading background? And underneath that is paragraph 5.
All right, I'm with you.
Would you like to read from that point onwards?
My full name is Thomas Reginald Name. I am 74 years of age. I am married, have 3 children. I am the youngest of 5 children. I have 2 older brothers and 2 older sisters. My mother and father separated when I was about 9 months old. I was subsequently placed in the care of my grandmother, Emma Kirk. When I was about 10 years old, my grandmother's health deteriorated and I was recommended to my father by the Dean of Bundaberg, Dean Madden, that I be placed in the care of St. Joseph's Orphanage, Neerkol. Neerkol was very isolated, about 30 miles out of Rockhampton, with nothing but a railway siding nearby. I was placed in Neerkol in 1950 and left in 1954 at the age of 14. I had been told by my father I was going to a nice boarding school. Neerkol. When I arrived at Neerkol, I was immediately separated from my father, had my clothes, shoes and all personal items confiscated. I was placed in the senior dormitory. If you were 10 years old of age or older, you were placed in the senior dormitory. My first 3 months at Neerkol were relatively pleasant. I was under the care of Sister Fenton, and she treated me well. After Sister Fenton was transferred, I recall Sister Anselm and Sister Sumter took over. Sister Sumter was second in charge of the home and head of the school. Sister Sumter's acts of cruelty were extreme. When I was about 12, I was selected to become an altar boy. I remember on one Saturday, Father Anderson required me down at the presbytery. When I arrived, however, the phone rang and one of the nuns came and Father Anderson told me to go. I was regularly made to work in the garden outside the presbytery. I vividly recall that on one occasion, while I was working in the garden, one of the boys from the orphanage came out of the presbytery crying, saying, "You old bastard, you old bastard, you old bastard." Physical abuse. I suffered and witnessed regular physical abuse and humiliation while living at Neerkol. Sister Sumter in particular was vicious, sadistic in her treatment to me and other children at the orphanage. For instance, if children went to bed, then they would have to stand with the soil sheets over their head, or they were belted by Sister Anselm. I ran away on 2 occasions while I was at the orphanage. The first time I was caught, the Capra police, and I was taken into the dormitory and told to lay across my bed by one of the nuns. Several nuns were watching at the time, and the nuns beat me with a cane for about 10 minutes. This happened for the next 3 nights. Second occasion that I ran away, which was about 9 months later, I was caught by the Canberra police and taken back to Neerkol. This time I was made to remove my shorts in the dormitory. Sister Sumter hit me with a cane for several minutes until it broke. Sister Sumter then picked up a broomstick and continued to hit me with it. The Neerkol farm manager, Mr. Rose, also came into the room holding a stockwhip just to watch what was happening. The punishment was repeated daily for 2 weeks. The stockwhip was not used, but it was intimidated and frightened by it. After the incident, I did not try to run again because I was scared of what would happen to me. On one Saturday afternoon, I recall being lined up on the veranda by the nuns along with all the boys. We were made to take off our pants, so we were naked from the waist down. We stood on the veranda for an hour and a half until Sister James arrived. When she arrived, we went one at a time into the sewing room. Sister James then touched and inspected my penis with a ruler and each of the other boys in turn. Sister Anselm and Sister Ave Maria were present. I felt humiliated by this. This happened only once to all the boys present at the dormitory. The nuns would also watch us boys shower each and every time. It was very embarrassing. We had no privacy at all. Neerkol staff would put on a facade at any time. Any parents or government officials came to visit. The children were dressed in good quality clothing, provided with shoes, and we were given lollies to eat. Normally we did not wear shoes and lived in warm, thin clothing. I remember my feet were being regularly sore, cracked from the cold in winter. We also had to walk approximately half a kilometre mass every morning at 6 a.m. when the temperature would be less than 10 degrees or below. I left Neerkol when I was 14 years old. It was the end of the school term and I was put on a train and sent back to my father in Bundaberg. My father did not know that I had been sent to his farm in Bundaberg. When I arrived, he was away working and my second cousins were living there. I was told that I could not stay there, so I went on to stay with my sister who was some 40 miles away. Reporting the abuse. On the occasion that I ran away, I referred to the above at paragraph 16. I told the Canberra police that I was being physically abused in Neerkol, but they did not believe me. I also told my father on the occasions that I saw him, but he did not believe me either. Felt helpless, eventually gave up trying to stop it from happening to me. Neerkol Action Support Group. In the late 1990s, I saw an advertisement in the newspaper looking for people from Neerkol to get together. I attended this meeting along with 30 other people. I decided to attend because up until that point, no one had been interested in what was happening at Neerkol. I thought it was about time that someone stood up and took notice. I thought the others needed to know that what had happened to all of us at Neerkol. At this meeting, people attended, formed the Neerkol Action Support Group. The NASG met monthly and I attended these meetings. After a period of time, SSAG approached Blood Relationship Society who offered their support to survivors of Neerkol. Members of the group would travel to the branch of relationships in West End, Brisbane, and receive counselling. I found the counselling service offered very helpful and used it for a period while I lived in Brisbane. My experience with the Neerkol Action Support Group was positive. I felt very comfortable in the company of people who were the same wavelength as who were rowing in the same boat. Civil litigation. Through the Neerkol Action Support Group, I became a class member of the action brought by Shane Rage McGowan, solicitors against the Catholic Diocese of Rockhampton, the Sisters of Mercy and the Queensland Government. In early 2000, I entered into a settlement agreement and received $10,000 in total from the Catholic Diocese of Rockhampton and the Sisters of Mercy. In hindsight, I think this amount is a pittance. I recall being told that the Sisters of Mercy were forced to sell their property to pay for the settlement, but I regard it as a bit of a sob story. I also think that the solicitors took a large proportion of the settlement and the fees. Unfortunately, people were desperate and sometimes it's better than nothing. Something's better than nothing. Queensland Redress Scheme. I was made aware of the Queensland Government Redress Scheme by members of NSG. I applied for compensation for abuse I suffered in Neerkol. On I left it late to apply and found the application process difficult, which I attribute to poor education I received from the 7 years I was at Neerkol. As part of the application progress, I was told by a representative of the scheme that I had to pay for a psychological assessment to be eligible to apply. The assessment cost $2,000, and that amount was not paid for by the scheme. It was a huge cost that I had to pay. On about the 2nd of December 2009, I received a letter from the Queensland Department of Communities telling me that I was considered by the panel to qualify for level 2 compensation of the scheme, and I received $14,000. The letter says that the level 2 payment was in addition to level 1 payment of $7,000 that I had already received. I do not recall receiving this payment. Just to quantify that, I checked my bank records and I did receive $7,000. It is my view that some good came out of the Ford inquiry and its recommendations, like Gladys Place. However, I think that the money that I was paid through the redress scheme was insufficient. I felt like it was intended to shut the victims up and get them off their government's back. I also think, in respect to Neerkol, the primary responsibility for redress should be borne by the Catholic Church rather than the state government. Impact on my life. I left the orphanage. I suffered from depression and continue to suffer this form from time to time. I still have nightmares about the way I was treated by the nuns. As a young man, I became an alcoholic. I drank in excess to attempt to dull my memory of what I experienced at Neerkol. I have had difficulty in the past managing my mood swings.
Mr Murnane, I just want to ask you a couple of questions about what you say in your statement. Can I take you to paragraph 13 of your statement? And this relates to the physical abuse. You say there that you suffered and witnessed regular physical abuse while you were living at Neerkol, and you describe when children would wet the bed, and also on about 2 occasions when you ran away from the orphanage. Are there any other recollections of physical abuse or the types of physical abuse that you'd like to share with the Royal Commission?
Oh, where do you start? There was, like the last year of school, we weren't taught any schooling at all. There was concentration. Sister Mercy was the one that was supposed to be teaching us, but she had to look after the 8th graders, was they? We were just left to our own devices, and something would sneak up behind us and we'd be mucking around and we'd get whacked with anything she could pick up. And that was a regular occasion. You go to Mass. If you coughed during winter, if you had a cough, you'd cough it after. You couldn't cough, you couldn't flatulate. That's all that type of minuscule stuff. It was just endless.
And did that occur throughout the time that you were there, or was it?
Oh yes, it was never ending. It was never ending. You don't know when they were going to pounce you, especially a Sumpter. She'd sneak up behind you, or like I said, if you coughed in the church, you'd be bawled out. You might, for the morning mass, the other part of the punishment line, if you say you had it, you can't help the cough, you wouldn't get your breakfast. That sort of stuff, as well as the beatings.
And the beatings that you referred to, in what sort of circumstances would they occur?
Oh, well, it was, you might step out of line, or you weren't quick enough to put your hands behind your back or something like that. It was all trivia sort of stuff. It just went on and on. And
how would they physically beat you?
Well, most of the time they did have a cane, and you'd get the cane. And there was times when we were sneaky too. We'd find a pin and put a pin in the end of the cane so it would split.
And did that too occur during the whole time that you were at the orphanage?
It never ended. And like I said, There'd be times that it wouldn't be put your hand out, it should just be a whack, might get you back, across the arm. Sometimes they'd ask you to put your hand out and give it to you.
You describe in paragraphs 20 and 21 of your statement reporting the physical abuse, and you say that you told the Cabra police on one occasion after you'd run away.
Yeah, both times I said, we don't want to go back there, because this is happening. Oh no, the nuns wouldn't do that to you. They're nice people.
To the best of your recollection, can you tell the public hearing what you actually said to the Cabra police?
Well, they said they come and picked us up. We were way overnight. It was probably about 9 o'clock next morning. The farmer picked us up, and we were picking potatoes one day before the police came. Actually, the first time we ran away, they rang the orphanage. The police came, but they rang the orphanage, and the car came from the orphanage to pick us up. The second time, the police took us back. So in the process of the car on the way back, we told the police what was going on, the beatings and that. They said, oh no, the nuns wouldn't do that. They're lovely people. You're lying. They didn't say you're lying. They said you're making up stories so you don't go back.
And can you remember with any precision or any detail what you told them about the beatings?
No, we just said that's what happening to us. The reason we ran away, they asked you the reason you ran away. We said because, we're forever getting punished. We're getting beaten.
And you told the Cabra police that on 2 occasions, is that correct?
That's correct.
You've also described in your statement occasions when there was some measuring with a ruler of your penis. Did you ever tell anyone about that?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever tell anyone about that in particular when you were living at the orphanage?
Well, it happened to all the whole, I think it was probably about 29 to say 32 boys. It happened to all of us in the dormitory on that day.
Inspectors came to the orphanage?
They did.
And on any of the occasions that the inspectors came to the orphanage, did you tell them about what the nuns or the sisters were doing?
No, we were never allowed to speak to inspectors. You'd have the inspection, we'd line up in the parade area, the inspector would be up on the veranda, we'd all be done up in the nice fine clothes that we had, out of the cupboard, we'd parade, the inspector would have a look, and then we'd come into class, he'd come through the class and check it out, and then he'd be on his way again. We weren't allowed to speak to anyone.
And on the occasions where you spoke to the police about the physical abuse, did it occur to you at that time to tell the police about the rulers and the incidents with the rulers?
No, that happened after I'd run away.
And what was the reason that you didn't tell anyone about the incidents with the rulers?
Well, no one wanted to believe me. Not even my own father. These lovely nuns.
So is it your evidence that you didn't tell anyone about that because you didn't think you would be believed?
That's correct.
And was that in part because of the reaction of the police and your father to what you had told them about the physical beatings?
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Murnane. I have nothing further.
Come back to you, Mr. Kernaghan. Anyone else have any questions of Mr. Murnane? No. Mr. Kernaghan.
Mr. Murnane, again, my name is Kernaghan and I'm representing you. I just have a couple of brief questions for you. You spoke about the events that occurred to you during the time that you were there, and you've heard in the witnesses that have come before you a number of events described that occurred after your time. Would you describe what they're describing as similar?
It's very authentic. It's true in every word, what I've heard.
You've spoken at some length about how the children were treated. Do you have a recollection of how the sisters interacted with one another?
No, I don't really. But I was of the opinion in a later life that as you grow older, Sister Assumpta, I think, was bullying the younger nuns to do her bidding.
In the time that you were there in the dormitory, would there be a sister present?
Oh, there's always a sister present when you... there was always a sister present. There was a few times that they might have went to an early mass or something, and we had a bit of a play-up then.
But, for example, the sisters that you're referring to as having been in charge of your group at various times, they would sleep in...
They slept in a small room at the end of the dormitory.
Sort of a curtained-off area at the end of the dormitory.
Yeah, it was boarded off, yeah.
And they would be responsible for you. Would anyone else be responsible?
No, only they were responsible.
And if there were any issues, was there any structure whereby those issues were taken up to a higher ranked sister? Would just be dealt with at that one-on-one level?
Yes.
Were you aware of any structures within the children's group for things like a council of students or any role for students to be together?
There was none of that.
Was there any process or system in place by which students would be able to come together and have discussions about what was happening?
None whatsoever.
Were there any things like student monitors or students that were given special responsibilities over other students?
No.
So it was that you were all treated at the same level?
Same level, yeah.
And were you encouraged to interact with each other?
Well, we did in the night time and that we did. We might play games in the room before we were sent to bed or that.
But it would be fair to say that as a group or individually, you did not feel any stronger sense of power to act on your own behalf?
No.
Were you aware of other students running away?
No, I can't.
Didn't have much to take with you.
That's exactly right.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honour.
Thanks, Mr. Kernaghan. Anything arising from
No,
that,
Your Honour.
Ms. David? Mr. Manone, thank you for your attendance at the Royal Commission, and you're now otherwise excused.
Your Honour, can I tender the redacted copies of the letters from AYN, which were referred to earlier by Ms Neeton?
26.10.
And if I please, if that's convenient time, I might conclude for today.
All right, and 10 tomorrow, and I'm assuming that a copy of that non-publication order will make its way shortly for signing. Thank you. 10 tomorrow.
Silence or stand?